In the first 3 centuries of the Church, the early Christian movement began to spread around the Roman Empire and beyond. Christians lived among their non-Christian neighbors, mostly in urban areas. Since Christians were surrounded by pagan Roman culture, they developed a distinctive culture for themselves right in the midst of Roman society, a culture that was oriented around following the crucified and resurrected Jesus. At this time, Christians only made up a fraction of the total population. So when it came to sharing the Christian faith with their neighbors, it was obvious to the early church that there was a very large gap between their way of thinking and their lifestyle and that of their pagan Roman neighbors. The church came to realize that it needed some sort of a bridge to help seekers move from mainstream Roman culture into the life of the church. So what emerged as an answer to this challenge was a 1 to 3 year formational process that the church called the Catechumenate. You could think of it as a cultural immersion program or a life training center that existed alongside the sacramental life of the church. Its whole goal was to form disciples of Jesus and equip them to live all of life in reference to God. It included classes, mentoring relationships, communal practices, and other elements that led to the establishment of a truly Christian identity. The Catechumenate was the place to explore questions, learn the Christian story, and be formed in patterns of Christian life. As the Catechumenate developed, it served several purposes for the church. First, it acted as a bridge for seekers who were becoming Christians. Second, it also acted as a school of formation for those who grew up in the church. The church kept in mind that Christians are always formed, never born, so every Christian went through the Catechumenate. And when it was working well, the Catechumenate produced a steady stream of mature leaders who could lead the church with deep faith and courageous love. Fast forward 1700 years. The church now finds itself in a similar position to the early church. In a place like San Francisco, active Christians make up only a small percentage of the city's total population. But rather than being in a pre-Christian setting, we now find ourselves in a post-Christian context. So we have the additional challenge of articulating the faith to a culture that assumes it already knows what Christian faith is and has rejected it or ignored it. To add to the challenge, the Christian church in our era is deeply fragmented and confused about its own identity in many cases. Many of us who are Christians have never been truly catechized and formed into disciples who live all of life in reference to God. At Eucharist Church, we believe the future of the Christian faith in a place like San Francisco calls for a new catechumenate. It must be every bit as robust and ambitious as the catechumenate of the early church. But we can't merely repeat the past. Our catechumenate must also address the realities and challenges of 21st century post-Christian culture. The catechumenate we're building is quite different from a membership class or a Sunday school class. It's focused on formation rather than just information. It's intentionally communal, it's holistic and focused on practices and habits. It seeks to capture imagination and establish a sense of identity through its focus on narrative. And it's something that only makes sense within the life of a vibrant Christian congregation that embodies the culture the catechumenate is working to instill. This is the vision God has given us for a 21st century catechumenate.